What's up, guys? Welcome back to Spark to Fire. I'm your host, Landon Rhodes. I've got Christie Hinrichs in the studio today. How you doing?
I'm great. Glad to be here. Thanks, Landon.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming in today. So Christie is the president and CEO of Tabitha, based here in Lincoln. So I've heard such great things about this organization, and when your team reached out, we got this together. I was super excited. So glad you're here. I'd love to introduce you to the audience for people that don't know your background, where you're from. So start with where you're from and where'd you grow up?
Sure. So I'm just a small town kid. I grew up in Callaway, Nebraska, which most people have no idea where that's at.
Is that way out west?
It's way out west. Yeah. The road does go west of Lincoln, for those who don't believe it to be true. So yeah,
that's Western Nebraska right there. Just Nebraska. 45 minutes out.
And truthfully, it's like Central Nebraska, but whatever. We just go with Western because it feels like it makes sense to people. So anyway, I grew up in Callaway. My parents are still there, and it's just a nice small town. Ended up graduating from the University of Nebraska at Kearney, and then rolled into Lincoln. I actually wanted to be a probation officer. So my bachelor's degree is in social work, and my dream was to be a probation officer. So I was in Lincoln for a probation officer interview, and I was, more importantly, a desperate college graduate looking for work. And I didn't seem to be getting the probation gig. And so Tabitha was looking for a hospice social worker at that time. So I applied. I was back in the day when you had to read the Journal Star for your ads and kind of know what was going on. And
make a phone call.
Fill out a paper application.
Send a letter. Yeah. Wild.
All of that.
Wild times.
Yeah. So I still kind of laugh to this day because I don't remember knowing what hospice was. And this was before Google too, and so I don't know what I said in that interview, but somehow I landed that hospice social worker job at Tabitha. So that was cool. Back in the day.
Yeah. So you go through your career. How long did you stay at Tabitha originally when you were there?
So I stayed at Tabitha. I left there in 2002, and I had been a number of different things. I keep saying I wasn't that great at social work, so they kept promoting me.
We're gonna empower you to do something else.
we got to find your sweet spot, right? We want you to do
good.
Something that you're good at.
Yeah, you're the ultimate culture fit. They couldn't let go of you, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
We know there's something in there. We just got to find it.
Yeah, that's good.
So when the heart hospital here in Lincoln was being built in 2002, I went there as the chief operating officer, and I went while they were still under construction.
Wow.
So I got to hire all the staff, bring on all the policies, take them through survey, serve our first patient, and all that. It was really a rewarding position. But it also wasn't for me, so I wasn't there very long. I stayed for exactly 1 year because I couldn't imagine leaving before that, so I was counting down the days.
Yeah.
It wasn't the right fit. They do great work, and I'm so proud and happy to have been a part of that. And so then I did an early retirement. I took a year off, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I was lost, kind of.
And what age are we talking?
Gosh, I was. You're gonna make me do math on air. Let's see. So that would have been about 2004 to 2005. So I would have been in my 30s. And retirement is kind of said in jest, obviously. But it really was a search for what do I want to do next? Because I had been tumbling and stumbling along, I think. I never really had a plan other than probation officer, right? And I just kept being given these opportunities, and I was like, God, what are you up to? Because I don't get it. I don't feel like, I'm probably necessarily qualified for these things that you've asked me to do, but I've done okay when you've asked me to do them. So I did a year of reflection, and that was the year where I really embraced, I hear you, God. I believe that you intend for me to lead, and I need to find that place in which I can go and do my best work as leader.
Did you have people speak into your life saying that you're supposed to be a leader?
I heard it constantly. Yeah. I didn't believe it until I paused to really reflect on it, right? You kind of take a minute. You're so busy in the busyness of life, right? And busy is defined as just keep moving.
Right.
And when you pause and you look back on what you've been doing and the impact you've had and how you made that impact, then it's a little bit more hard to deny what people have been telling you.
Right. And That's super interesting. I feel like this is a theme in my life because I've had a conversation yesterday and the day before. It was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and all the conversations point back to the difference between self-reliance and then self-reliance and relying on God for like the decisions in your life, and also like the revenue if you're a small business owner, because I speak with so many entrepreneurs, and they said that, and this guy's an 8-figure, owned multiple 8-figure businesses, and he's like 41. So absolutely killing it financially, and then also has an amazing family. So he's got what I would consider true wealth, right? Health, family, financial success, like he's living it.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I'm like, was there ever a time where like you became so reliant on yourself that like you stopped relying on God? He's like, absolutely. And like, he's like, I was the most lost in my entire life.
Yeah.
And so I just find that really interesting. So what did you do when you were on your 1 year? Did you like get in the Word a lot more, or was it like, did you go to, backpack in Pakistan? Like, what'd you do? Like, that's what some people do, right? Like, they'll go to a foreign country.
I wish I could have.
Yeah. Like, what did you?
But there was no long walk up a hill for me. No,
Yeah.
It was a lot of reading and a lot of listening and just self-reflection, quiet self-reflection. I read a little book, just an easy read, called Jesus CEO. That was one of the things that just, it was little minutes with him that was like, pay attention to what's going on, and I'm in charge. And, I compete for being in charge with him constantly. And so it was, me being able to say, I've never really had a plan for my journey, and yet my journey has really gone very well. And, I've been blessed with health and a great family and great support too. And so you have to just go, but I didn't do that. And someone bigger than me is in charge, because otherwise I'd be scared to death of what I was trying to do, because I wasn't really trying to do anything. I was just trying to move along. And, that's what I share with my team every time I have an opportunity to meet with our new team members as they join Tabitha. I didn't really mean to do or be anything, but I was open to the journey.
That's exactly what Joey Hausman said when he came on.
Really?
Yeah, he was sitting in that chair, and he said, he's like, dude, when I started, he said it like this. So when his wife was still here, he's like, babe, when we close this deal, we might make $60K this year. And now you think about like what that means to him.
Yeah, right.
And it's and at that time, that was so much, and that was enough, and that was something to be excited and grateful for. And obviously, you continue to progress in life and things change. But so many people that I've interviewed on the show are like, I never intended on being anything. I just wanted to be the best at whatever I was doing that day.
Yeah,
that's good.
And prior to me really accepting the fact that I wasn't in charge, I spent a lot of time in fear, like, when is this all going to come crashing to a halt? Until you realize, like, if you try to control it, then the likelihood of having a crash is pretty high. Yeah. And so that, that was such a release for me. And it was that year that I kind of took for reflection, where it was like, let it go. And it's just been refreshing to be able to do that.
And did it take the full year to do that, or did you realize that like midway through?
Midway through, I was like, okay, all right, now I'm ready. What's next? What's next?
Yeah. And so did you have to like wait for God to then like point you to your next career?
Yeah, because I still was resistant to what I felt like he was calling me back into, nonprofit, healthcare. Yeah. It's hard. That's hard work. And I was like, I thought I just left all of that for peace of mind and
I've
peace.
been talking to you a lot more.
I don't think we're done chatting.
Yeah, I don't think we're done chatting yet. That's good.
But it was definitely about at that 6-month mark. It's interesting that you asked that. It was that 6-month mark where I started itching to get back to it, whatever it was. And I did. I called it out. I said, okay, I hear you. I'm meant to lead. I'm meant to lead in the nonprofit space. I'm meant to lead at an organization where faith can be accepted and be on the table, and we don't have to be ashamed of that, or we don't have to hide that. And so, I knew that that's eventually where I would find my way. I didn't know I would find my way back, but I would find my way.
That's really interesting that you said I like a place where you could be comfortable with your faith on the table. We were at this conference yesterday, and there was this company it was a cellular company that's Christ focused, and like I would say Patriot focused. It's Patriot Mobile. So free ad. You're welcome, Patriot Mobile. If anybody ever listens to this, I want to hear from you. So they have this mobile, like wireless company basically, and they're specifically like trying to support first responders, people. They're also like very pro-life, and then they'll give like really cool like leaves, so like paternity leave, maternity leave, obviously the main ones, but then they have a bunch of other like benefits to that. And so it was really cool as they showed their revenue on a chart, and it was like 2007 I think, or 2010, when their CEO made the decision to just be like straight up like, I'm telling everybody that we're a faith-filled company. It's like, I don't care anymore.
Right.
And so they had 5 or 6 years of playing it safe, and like literally their revenue is unchanged. So it's like this. It's just like flat line across the board. And then it's 2007, and it literally geometrically rises, stair steps like a wireless signal.
Yeah.
Stair steps all the way up to now they're like up here.
Yeah.
And that to me was very eye-opening.
Yeah.
And I think what I heard in that moment was God's just like, you need to go win people for the kingdom. Like, this isn't about just your small business.
Right.
Like, you need to, and by the way, I'm going to bless the crap out of it as soon as you,
Yes.
as soon as you do. So, that has been on my heart a lot lately. And I think that we're about to step into that in a big way.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
I actually once had a member of my board of directors who was on my finance committee, and he said to me, Christie, hope is not a strategy. And I said, I get that, Mike, but it's really served us well for a very long time. So
I know that.
I'm gonna have a business plan too, but I'm going to stick with hope as a strategy as
That's
well.
so funny.
There's someone bigger than me in charge here.
That's so funny. Yeah.
We use that line a lot.
Hope is a strategy, actually.
Yeah,
That's super great. Yeah, it's so wild how like you see this a lot with like themes in your life, and they just keep getting brought back up.
For sure.
Like I think it started 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I read there was something in the scripture that was like, as soon as you give it all up, or like basically like put your reliance on him, everything changes. He'll make rivers through the desert, all of roads through the forest, something like that.
Right.
Yeah. And then naturally that's what happens.
It
And
is
like
what happens.
things have been changing in our business like crazy. So I'm watching this happen, reading this, having conversations like this with you. It's been super fun. So so you get done with your sabbatical, getting back into it here, and then you go back into the workforce. What was your first thing?
I do. I broke all the rules.
Okay.
I actually, we lived just outside of Ashland. So Lincoln had always been an opportunity, but Omaha was of interest to me. Curiosity is kind of one of my top strengths. And so I was always like, what's this thing they talk about, the healthcare landscape being different in Omaha? What does that mean? And so, so I went to work in Omaha, and I went to work for a large for-profit company that was not faith-based. So I broke all the rules that I had set for myself, but it was a re-entry point, and it was a point of curiosity. And, for all those steps that I took before I kind of had my return to Tabitha, I'm forever grateful, because it helped me be, better all around. It helped me realize how important faith was. It helped me realize how much I was meant to be in a nonprofit and lend my leadership there. And it affirmed that I, in fact, did need to lead and could lead in different environments as well, and presented different sets of challenges. And it really, really made my faith stronger, because, it was an instance of great hardship. I was told when I came into this organization, things are really going great, and you just kind of need to show up. And I was like, well, that sounds actually kind of fun. Just showing up would be, like little stress in my life would be great. But, but it wasn't at all like that when you peeled back the onion. And I couldn't just sit there and be okay with less than okay. And so I shook things up, and, and then all the work lies there, right? If you're willing to tear into it, and and curiosity does that, and drive does that, competence does that, then you got to be willing to do with something with what you find. So the work was heavy.
That's good. I talked to a guy named David Meltzer, who I just had him on the show a while ago, and he talked about how I asked him the question, I'm like, do you think there's a point of where entrepreneurs or presidents and CEOs, like really elite business people, do you think they like have this problem where they like go over the edge, where they like work too hard, they burn out, but also like sometimes they lash out and they get really like power hungry, and then like they're just kind of erratic, I would say is the word, because they're just like, they want to do so many changes all at once. And he said that people that must be what they can be will automatically have more strife, failure, bad experiences in their life, because they're openly admitting that like, I have to become this best version of myself.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's kind of what you encountered when you got there. Like you knew you must be what you can be, and that just walking in isn't like, that's not enough for you.
Right. Yeah. And it's not enough for the organization either.
Right.
So if I'm going to be a part of an organization, good will never be good enough. And I'm perfectly comfortable owning that. I mean, I have said for a long time to people, especially where I'm at today, we're striving for perfection. We know perfection isn't possible, but we serve people. And so striving for less than perfection is just, it's incomprehensive to me. So it's a big bar, but you got to set a big bar in order to have something to shoot for.
Right. So when you got into this business, this is specifically for the young female entrepreneurs, or whatever age you are, young female entrepreneurs, older female entrepreneurs, and then women that are in the corporate world that want to rise up through the ranks. When you first got into here, did you ever look at yourself and think like, oh, there's some sort of a ceiling above me, and like a lot of women talk about like a glass ceiling? Did you ever have that belief before you became president and CEO of this company?
Yeah, I never meant to be president and CEO. I'll tell you that right now. I was never like seeking that. This is where, I've just been on the journey and been open to God kind of moving me along. But, like I said to you earlier, what I feared was just failure itself. I never thought of myself as, am I a female, and will this be hard? I don't know if it was ignorance or as bliss, or just, competence and confidence that kind of came together and buoyed me with Christ, saying, here, you're going to go ahead and do it. Here's enough courage to do it. Yeah. But I would just show up to the table and, for lack of a better word, just kind of belly up to the bar like everyone else did, and use my voice when I felt like it had something important to say. Not use my voice when I felt like what I had to say was not worth it. And, don't talk just to talk and be noticed. And then it takes care of itself. I mean, you can be the smartest person in the room, regardless of, what sex you are, or what color your hair is, or what color your skin is. And so quietly make an impact. People notice.
Oh, that's good. Quietly make an impact. People notice. I love that. Yeah. And at the end of the day, the work will start to speak for itself. People will start to recognize. Right. I've always said that, from a hiring perspective, we don't go look to say, we need to cherry pick a female for this position, or we need to cherry pick somebody of XYZ heritage for this, for this position. I've always said, like, hire the most talented people. Yes. And like, whatever skin color, whatever sex they are, at the end of the day, like, hire the person who's the best fit for the job, who also like really desires to have the job.
Yes.
Like, cause you could, if that's your standard of like, we're going to have all the different colors of people and all the different, everything. Yeah. If that's your standard, like, you're going to end up with no culture, because you're not standing for anything except for being a melting pot.
Right.
And like, obviously America are automatically that way. So I've always struggled with that when people are like, well, we need to hire someone who's Asian for this position, or somebody who's Black for this position. It's like, how would we just hire somebody that's mad talented, right, that loves our company, right, and loves our customers, and then we're going to figure that out, and like, naturally it will sort itself
right
out. And
yeah.
So that's always been my take on it. And I know that I'm a white dude, so like, I'm sure there's things that like I am blind to completely that I don't see, but I've always wanted to know that from a perspective of a successful woman who's like rose up through the ranks. I mean, you started off in hospice, ended up as a director of operations, and then now a CEO and a president.
Yeah.
Like, you stand for something that is possible, and I think that that's super important to people.
Yeah, I always say, put people behind a screen and don't give us any idea what they look like or sound like, and pick the best talent based on what we, what we can hear and see, and the opportunity to get to know someone. At Tabitha, we hire culture first, hands down. You know, I mean, really nothing else matters. I mean, if you require a license, we do need to make sure you have a license.
Yeah.
If we need you not to be a criminal, we're going to make sure
That's
of that,
important.
right?
Yeah.
But assuming you meet those basic criteria, you know, we're hiring for culture. I can teach you how to do the work. I can't teach you to be a great human being. I can't teach you to be passionate about the work that we do. And I need you to be. I need you to be passionate. We care for people, and people caring for people is hard work, very rewarding. But I can't have you be someone who really is a better fit making donuts. And you know, donuts need to be made. Like people love them, but not at my shop. And you know, people are like, over the years, I've been accused of running a cult, and I take it as a compliment,
That's
right?
awesome.
What it means is we're really clear about what our core values are at Tabitha, and we own them, and we're proud of them, and we need you to share them in order for you to help us be our very best. So you'll be your best self, we'll be our best selves, because we're a good match, and you know, good matches are made in heaven.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's so good. Been accused of running a cult. That's amazing. I hope somebody says that about me someday. Not a real one, but kind of like that. Yeah, that's so funny. And we, you know, the church that I go to absolutely has a cult-like following that way, where like we're all in for it, and it's a giant family, and so one of the best things I ever heard on like as interviewing in this podcast is that great cultures automatically repel people who are not right for it. So like, they will literally self-select themselves out of your
100%.
organization if your core values are clear.
100%.
It may take longer for some people, but eventually it's just the core values are like that guiding star.
Yeah.
So,
and it's really easy to find fake in an interview when you start going, you know, circling around core values. And it is true. You know, if someone slips through, they stick out like a sore thumb. I mean, it's like having 5 fingers and one really red one that just keeps going.
Just throbbing. So
it's easy to notice.
So how many people do you guys currently employ, and how many volunteers do you have?
Yeah, we have about 1,000 team members and about 1,000 plus volunteers who make our work, you know, go on.
Wow.
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 Yeah.
Okay. And what's the vision for the future of Tabitha? Like, where are we going from here?
Yeah. So we've been dedicated to both rural and urban Nebraska. So we serve so far in about 28 counties across the state of Nebraska. Nebraska matters to us. And whether you live in the country or you live in the city, that matters too. So we've been really trying to pay attention to, you know, especially this incredibly changing landscape of healthcare right now, costs, all of that's getting harder and harder. And, you know, I'm deeply concerned about rural, what options will be available for rural. So we're in the process right now of building a new community in Grand Island. Really proud of that. My parents are actually going to relocate there. So that's how much I believe in it is, they'll become, you know, some of the first who move into there. But that will be kind of a solid place for us to plant in the midst of the rural communities around it, so that rural feels like and does have options for them to continue to thrive in the communities in which they raise their families. That matters a lot. The other thing that we have going on right now that I'm super excited about, this has been kind of my pet project and my dream maybe, is we're building on our campus at 48th and O. We're building, or 48th and Randolph. We've only been there 130 some years. I don't know how I screw up the address. But we're building the first ever intergenerational community. And so this will be 128 units of independent living for 55 plus year old seniors. But we've invited the Bryan Health Sciences, College of Health Sciences students to live with the seniors.
I've heard about this.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating to me. And I think that there is going to be some incredible wisdom departed from those people, hopefully, right? I think that's
transfer of wisdom. One of our major goals. Absolutely. Abating loneliness, one of our major goals. Interestingly enough, we knew loneliness was a major affect for health of older adults. But when we started doing the research, the loneliest generation is actually college-age students. How
much more, like compared to, say, somebody that's 75, 85 years old compared to somebody who's 20 to 25? Like, what's the percentage
About
difference?
20% more.
20% more lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're sitting here more connected than ever,
Right.
on our cell phones.
Right. Yeah. It's just, it's a false sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
We're expanding our work into Omaha. That was not really something that we had on our near radar, but again, kind of this heart that beats for nonprofit and feeling like we really do deliver a different, solution for people. One of the largest providers of nonprofit home health and hospice exited the Omaha market. And so we had an invitation to go there and we jumped on it. And, my board sometimes thinks that I'm crazy. We got a little too much going on. We have a lot going on, but I think it's important for us to take opportunities when, and I believe God opens those doors, and he'll only let us walk through if he's going to hold our hand and lead us through that. So, that's all underway right now. That's kind of what's happening over the next 3 years is we'll get all those up and going. But we know that people want to stay in their own homes. We know that technology has a life of the future. We also know that technology cannot fully replace the sense of support from people. Mm-hmm. So what we do is provide loving care and compassion, right? At the end of the day, the most important thing that Tabitha does is provide loving care and compassion. Robots and technology can't do that. So we'll forever be people caring for people. We'll be supported by technology. Mm-hmm. And so we'll continue to grow and expand so that we can continue to reach as many lives as who need that solution. Will we go beyond the state of Nebraska? That's not been something that we've dreamed about, but just like my own life, my own journey, we're pretty open to listening to what God has in store for us as we plan for the future.
Yeah. When this is a deep, theological question. So when you hear from God, how do you know? I'm just curious because I feel like people say that.
Yeah.
And then there's also people listening who don't hear from God currently. And I'm just wondering, how do you, Christie, know when you hear from God?
Well, I think first of all, you move. I move. I make a decision that maybe I'd been stuck on. That's one thing. But maybe a more real thing is, you read your daily devotion or you engage in whatever way that you do. And, sometimes it hits you and sometimes it sticks. Sometimes it doesn't. You just kind of go on with your day. At least that's true for me.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that
I relate
real?
to that.
That's honest.
I relate to
okay.
That. Yeah.
But when God really speaks to me, the devotion stops me in my tracks. I say to my husband, "Holy cow," and I get goosebumps all over. So, it is a real life thing. It's not, just a figurative kind of thing that people say. At least for me, I become overcome with that real clarity.
You're convicted.
100%.
At that point.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
In the best way, not in a negative way. But that's how I would describe it. I would say, for people who are curious about this, because I wouldn't have even had this conversation 2 years ago where I was in my faith journey. But when I and my wife both, when we hear from God, it's more or less, first of all, it comes in threes usually. So you constantly hear something. So right now I'm hearing stop being self-reliant or be less self-reliant. And
that's a season. You'll go through that again.
Oh, I'm sure and from what I've heard and all the people I've talked to who I look up to, it keeps happening. So
yes.
I'm going to try and get better at that sooner. But, so there's that. And then I would say incredible peace. Mm-hmm. So something that should stress you out.
Yes.
I had several things this week that really probably should have stressed me out a lot, but I've also asked God about it. I'm like, is this your plan? Are you actually moving these people around? Are you doing these things on purpose?
Yeah.
And then usually the answer that I'm receiving is complete peace about it. I'm not worried at all.
Right.
And I can definitely spiral and go down to the worst case scenario very quickly. My mind is very creative that way.
Yes.
Unfortunately at times. So, if I don't go that way or I don't spiral down, I usually know that that's him talking to me. So that's super cool.
Agree.
So, as you were going through your journey of becoming who you are today, did you have a bunch of mentors, who who helped you become this better version of a leader of yourself that you are?
I think, I think that I do want to acknowledge that the lonely at the top is not just a saying. It's really lonely at the top. It's hard to find people who've walked your journey. It's hard to find people that you can trust to talk about your journey with, because, either someone reports to you, or they're a donor, or they're potential client. I always say every encounter I have has a 5 fingered prong, right? I mean, it could be someone who would want to come to work for me. It could be someone who wants to volunteer for me. It could be someone who is a donor. It could be a client or a client's family member. So that's just to name a few, right? So every person you have to view with that lens in mind, which makes your circle feel really small at times, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, I was blessed at a young age with having an executive assistant who was much older than me and just believed in me more than I could ever believe in myself, and had the strongest faith. And so she was my biggest critic, my biggest cheerleader, but she would tell me to believe in myself when I did not believe in myself. She once said, when I was probably 30 something, very young still at Tabitha, first time around, she would say to me, "You're going to be the president of this company someday." Wow. And I would just laugh, because I was like, I don't even want to be the president of this company someday. But she knew.
Did you tell her she's prophetic?
Oh yeah.
Did you like, hey, by the way, this happened?
All the time.
That's so cool.
So her faith kept me buoyed when I didn't have the strength to do it, even buoying my own faith. And she would just be a constant reminder. And so you need to find at least one person who you can say just be yourself with, right? Be your worst self, your best self, that has at least for me, that has a strong faith, that can help, inject faith when it's needed, cheerleading when it's needed, honesty, hard honesty when it's needed.
Wisdom.
She made, and wisdom. And wisdom is a core value for me. I mean, so much wisdom she was willing to share with me. Yeah.
And she was older than you or younger than you?
She was about, she's about 30 years older than me. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So she'd really been
she was
way ahead
the
of
wise.
you.
Yes.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and people are like, "Oh, you're executive assistant." I'm like, "Yep, my executive assistant." You think of Dad, Mom, Superman, CEO Joe, or whatever it is, and that wasn't my story. That's not my story.
Yeah, I had so when I was working in a tech support job for Lindsay in Omaha, I was like working on their technical side, and I had one of my this is the craziest thing. My supervisor at the time walked over to my desk. And so this is just like a little bit of a backstory. I'm sitting there on a support call, reading Think and Grow Rich in a sub browser under so I move the browser size all the way down. I'm reading Think and Grow Rich on my browser, and I have a support window up at the same time. And my boss can tunnel into my computer anytime I want, or anytime she wants. So I knew she was probably going to do it eventually. She walks behind my desk one day and sees me reading this, and she just looks at me and just kind of "So what are you going to do when you leave here?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I was worried. I thought I was going to get fired. And she's like, "What are you doing when you get out of this company?" And I loved my job, by the way. Sure. I loved the people I worked with. I was good at it. I loved everything about it. And I got to work with incredibly smart people. Mm-hmm. It was super fun. So I was like, I don't want to get fired. And she's like, "You're not supposed to work in this type of a job, or you're not even supposed to be in a place like this. You're supposed to go build a place like this." Yeah. And I kid you not, she just walked away. Yeah. I was like, "What?" Yeah. And so I didn't know if I was getting fired. And I was like, "Are you gonna and that was okay, I should probably start looking for a job." And so I did, and I got a job in sales, and then eventually started my own company. But
she saw your calling.
Yeah. And I just think that you have to be so, and it helps that she had a lot of the same temperament as you, mm-hmm. I would say, very, very similar temperament. And I really looked up to her as a leader, because she was she had all the amazing qualities of a female leader, where she could be strong where she needed to, but she also had this hardcore empathetic side that you just melt in her hands, because that she cared about you so much, but at the same time she could strike down,
right.
the rules, and you're like
Right.
terrified of her.
Right.
But I love that because it was both sides. It was everything that you needed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really respected her and looked up to her. So I was like, okay, I better go do that.
Right.
And that's,
no, I didn't get fired, but I did get inspired.
but I definitely got inspired. Yeah. So I think that's something that people should take away from this episode, is that not only when you have people in your life telling you,
mm-hmm.
hey, go do this, it's also when God's telling you, and then also people are telling you.
Yeah.
Because God's also this is something I didn't know until the last few years, meeting my wife and stepping deeper into my faith. Like, I didn't realize that God sends people to come talk to you.
Right.
Like, I literally didn't think that was a thing.
Right.
But like, there are very specific people in your life that will just pass you by and say, hey, this is going to happen, or you should think about this.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you had a lot of that?
Yeah.
I'm sure you're open
definitely,
to it. So.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And, and I say that about us, my team members and I mean, we are God's hands and heart on this earth, right? I mean, he's using us to make that same kind of impact on people every single day. Like, that's what we're charged with. And, it's a heavy and awesome responsibility. And I see people do it in amazing ways every single day. I was just reading a note yesterday from a grateful client that we had the privilege to serve. And, the way that he talked about my team members, and they're called angels a lot, right? Mm-hmm. They're angels on this earth doing God's work. And how lucky are we to be invited into people's lives at this really intimate, hard time. Vulnerable. And trusted, automatically trusted. We don't even have time to earn trust half the time. Mm-hmm. And yet we're brought into these lives to make a difference. And I'm proud of the team that they do that every day. And so again, that's, God puts us here to do that work.
That's good. One of the ladies speaking at this conference that I was at yesterday said when ladies would lose their hair to cancer or just older age or whatever, she would help solve that problem for them, and she's been doing it for a long time. And this lady had Alzheimer's or dementia, one of the two, and so her husband would always like drop her off, and she'd nearly be or he would always be in tears because he would like not know if his wife would remember these really important people. And I'm sure like you guys hear these stories all the time. Yeah. And this is a testament to what you're talking about, of like literally God sending people. And so she goes, she like walks up to Teresa is her name, and she like touches her face. She's like, I don't know who you are, but I know that I love you. Oh. And obviously Teresa just melts at that point. But that's a testament that like, even if your skin suit down here on earth doesn't know who somebody is, like your spirit definitely does.
Definitely.
And it's not going to forget those sort of things. What else do you want to share with our audience? It can be advice for people that are trying to, build their small business, or even, from your perspective, even more so, rise inside of a company and be entrepreneurial and be a leader at the very top. Like, what advice would you give people?
Yeah, I kind of live with the 5 C's as my pillars. Number 1, Christ at work, right? So notice that, be open to that, pay attention to that. Mm-hmm. And again, that buoys you in ways that you can never do on your own. And then curiosity is really an important part of my life. It's what's brought me to this point. And I mean it when I say to my team members, I didn't mean to be any of these things. What I have been all my life is curious, and I talk out loud. And so when I have questions, I wonder about them out loud. And what I learned at Tabitha is if you wonder about questions out loud, you may be given additional responsibility to figure out the answers to those questions. And so I do that to empower every person sitting in the seats, coming on as a new Tabitha team member who may also not aspire to be anything, realize that anything is possible. Just be open to that. And then courage is another core value of mine. I think that early in life, I didn't even realize how courageous I was, but I've done some really courageous things, and, things that we can't talk about on this podcast.
I'm excited to hear it after then. Let's go.
But things that without deep faith, I would never have had the courage to do. You just have to, that's when you definitely hear God clearly saying you must. And there are things that need to be said or done that other people just aren't willing. And so I've been the person. So, courage is really an important muscle to grow. If you don't have it, work on it. And then confidence and competence. So, you need to be as smart as you can be about what you're setting out to do or what you've been called to do. And then, believe in yourself. And there's self-doubt, and there's, that's a terrible lie that we carry around. And then there are also people around you just, yelling in your ear, saying all these things. I always say it's the wackadoodle on your shoulder, right? That you just can't knock off and keep off. There's always something in your ear telling you you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, or whatever it is. And so having the confidence to kind of swat that off and swat it off again and swat it off again. Those are the 5 things that have just kind of been my buoy and my strong rock to stand on and return to, because every day I'm not steady. Don't get get this wrong. Yeah. Like every day is not just flowers and blooming. It's you have fallbacks, but you have to have a place to fall back to and then leap again from. And then, people don't necessarily like it when I say it, but some of it is a little fake it to make it, right? And that comes from a place of not being fake for the sake of others, but tricking yourself into believing you're smart enough, you're confident enough, God is with you, have the courage and have the curiosity and step forward.
That's good. I always say to people, like, you need to give yourself credit for your good intentions too.
Right.
Like, obviously, at the end of the day, you have to produce results. You have to show up. You have to have integrity. But I think about when we had like low prices for the products we were selling at one point, and I didn't actually factor in the fact that we have incredibly high intentions and great intentions for our clients, and that yes, we do want to do the very best we can no matter what budget someone's paying us. But like, we also have to think about, do you think anyone cares as much as we do about this? Because I don't. Right. Like I will, and I say that to my sister. I'm like, we care the most about this, and we should remember that sometimes when we're really low, or like we feel like losers because we lost something.
Yes, right.
I think that giving yourself credit for your good intentions is super important.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah. And it's interesting. We're going through something similar right now with pricing, actually. But another thing that sparked for me was, we've been invited into communities or spaces to do, the work that we do. But for us, we're like, we can't care more than the community that has invited us in, because it takes community for us to be able to do our work. And so sometimes communities think that they want the kind of services that Tabitha provides. They invite us in, but then they're not willing to participate. So for example, just to make it very real in my world, I come to town as Tabitha to be your hospice provider, and you've asked me to do that, and then you make a referral to a different hospice provider. So, that suddenly means we care more about being there than the people who invited us and said that they cared and it mattered. Those have been hard decisions for us to make too, because that's that path in which you reach that point where you go, so did we hear this wrong, see this wrong, and what are we going to do about it? And we've retreated out of some of those situations. But it is best of intentions, like you said. We had great intentions. Both parties, I believe, did. Yeah. But then everybody wasn't all in.
Yeah, and sometimes that's God closing a door. Yeah. And then I think the wisdom is knowing the difference, right? So like figuring out, was that like, did we do something wrong? Like on earth here? Yes. Like, did we actually mess that up?
Yeah, and sometimes we do.
Yeah. And that's, I had a conversation with Jenna about that, my sister, yesterday. I was like, that was me. Like, I tend to like spiritualize things a lot sometimes, but I think that was just a really stupid thing that I did.
Right. We are human. Yeah. We have the human frailty of sin, so that's real.
That's right. That's right. I love how this conversation has gone. I never expected this to go here, but I think that people are gonna love this episode, because I don't think people are as outward about their faith in their business. And I've had several people on actually recently to talk about this, of what is your kingdom purpose as it relates to your business? And we are still figuring that out. We're still figuring out, I would say for Grindstone, we're still deciding like, what is that going to be? And, but this is a small step in that direction of, well, we can start talking about it more. That's at minimal, you know, like we can say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I think something that people should also consider is like, there's an eternal return on investment, like not just an ROI, but a EROI for the things that you're doing down here that like make God happy.
Right.
And trying to figure out what more of those things are right now. Do you think about that a lot?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And, you know, and I just feel unbelievably blessed every day that I get to come to work and know that I'm doing his work and know that the people that I'm surrounded by are doing his work. And, you know, and then I just don't want to disappoint him. And, you know, because that means, you know, every time that we, you know, inadvertently fail someone that we've been called to serve, you know, I feel like God's shedding a tear on that. And, you know, I don't like to see that. But I also know he knows we're imperfect. Yeah. And second chances are real. And so we get up and do the best we can after that, you know, and just keep doing the best we can.
That's super good. Last question I always ask people are what books are so good that you've read them more than once and you've recommended other people to read them?
Yeah.
Other than the Bible, because I know that's going to be first. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned Jesus CEO. It's just a short, easy read. And I have so much written in that and underlined in that and repeated in that I can just open it up and just even read highlights. The other thing I didn't talk about is I am a big Gallup strengths junkie, and so anything that is you know, on that side as it relates more to just leadership and business, I'm a big fan of First Break All the Rules. It's an old one too. It's an oldie but a goodie, and it's also got quite a bit of writing and highlighting in it. It's a little rebellious, which I tend to be a little rebellious.
You love that. Do you have you taken the Enneagram yet?
No.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes, years ago.
Do you know what you are?
I don't remember what I am, because people ask me that all the time, but I'm so into strengths that I just like ditched off all the rest.
You ditched it off. Oh man, you got to take it. I'm gonna send you a link. I want you to take it. And let me know. I feel like I have an idea.
All right.
I feel like you're an 8. I feel like you're definitely like an 8 wing 7. That's what I am.
My daughters made me do it, and I just like, it was interesting at the time, and then I moved on. I don't remember what they are either.
You'll have to ask them and get back.
But
to me,
I do know what their strengths are.
Okay. So what are their strengths then?
And they're very different from each other and from me. That's what's interesting. Okay. So and they surprised me with their strengths. One of them is very woo. One of them is very woo.
Woo is my top.
I would have guessed that.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. When I first took it, this is very real for anybody from Gallup watching this. As soon as I took it and I realized what woo was, and it's not what I wanted at that time, I literally wrote off the entire thing. I'm like, I'm never taking this again.
I've heard a lot of people say that.
Like, this sucks. And then you realize what woo. Yeah, and then you realize what woo. Yeah, like what was one of them? Like intelligence. It was something. I don't know what they are, but that's so funny how like you get one that like fits you. Like, that's so me, and then you go like that. Everything else is wrong. That's funny. Yeah.
Everyone thinks I'm a woo, and I'm not a woo. I do not have that in my top whatsoever.
Okay, so what are yours?
Yeah. Mine are strategic, ideation, futuristic, self-assurance, and achiever. Okay. So I'm pretty hard driving.
Yeah. You're either an 8 or a 3.
Okay. I'll take the test. You can close this loop.
Yeah. Well, we have to close this loop for sure. So, that's awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you for coming on and being so present today. You're just a blessing to talk to. So.
Thank you for having me, and same to you. Yeah. And good luck on your journey.
Yeah, I appreciate it. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Spark to Fire. And so we can continue getting more awesome people like Christie on the show, please make sure you go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. I love reading the reviews from you guys. It's so cool to see who's listening from all over the world, and also subscribe on YouTube so you can continue to see more content. We actually will cut clips out of the show, put them on YouTube to get you guys interested in more stuff. So exclusive content on YouTube, and make sure you're on Apple Podcasts, subscribed, and rate and review it. So thank you guys for listening. I appreciate you, and thank you so much much again for coming on. I appreciate
Thank you. God bless.
Yeah, take care.